We heard from the GM and heard from the head coach, and now you're going to hear from me, and I'm going to tell you all of my thoughts about what they said and what's going to happen in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars podcast. I am the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, Tony Wiggins, where it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. Head on over to YouTube to the Locked On Jaguars page, hit the like button, subscribe, and also hit the bell so you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Shout out to the everydayers for joining us every single day. And if you want to be an everyday, all you got to do is join us every single day. All right, get to the top of it, man. Trent, Baalke, and Doug Pederson spoke at the Combine on the first day that they were speaking. They held the podium, and we didn't learn too much more, but we did glean a few things that we were allowed to extract out of there. And more or less, it comes down to their old mantra that they want talent and versatility. They believe that the offensive lines on both sides of the ball is a strength in this draft. They also have said that they were going to address the corner position because they need to do that. So I'll tell you in segment 2 exactly some of the targets and needs that they'll be going after. We got a little bit of a clearer picture yesterday, in my opinion. And then we're going to be guessing on Trent's traits in segment 3. We're going to talk about some guys and some things that we believe he likes based on his history of how he picked players. The first segment, though, what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you some of the things that I thought after hearing from the coach and the GM yesterday. Nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. It's not as if there was some groundbreaking information that came out yesterday. It just didn't. There was nothing groundbreaking, nothing extraordinarily new that we've heard before. Although it tells me that something that I pushed out last week, a narrative that I kind of pushed out last week, was don't be surprised if the Jaguars do a little bit of what they did last year when they start bringing people back. And we apparently that's the case with. They want Josh Allen back. Obviously, he's going to be here. They're going to keep Cam Newton. He's under contract. They want Ezra Cleveland back. They're talking to his age. And they want Calvin Ridley back, and they're willing to just do it before free agency starts. And at least that's what they said. Either it's the best sales job ever, or they're doing a real good job of saying, we don't care if it's a second-round pick. We'll do it before free agency starts, or if it doesn't, runs into free agency and the player wants to go out and take a look, basically, and I'm paraphrasing all of this now, it'll just cost them a third after the league year, but there's a little bit of risk there. So it appears that they really, really, really like Calvin Ridley. They're going to work on an extension for a few players that they mentioned, Trevor, that he's their guy at quarterback. They're committed to him. They should feel that way. The other guys that they were talking about that were mentioned later in a sidebar from what I was able to juxtapose from like guys like Demetrius Harvey and Mike DeRocco and Mark Long that were all there. Apparently, when he's talking about young guys that need extensions, that means Andre Cisco, Tyson Campbell. Those are the young guys that need extensions. I think he even mentioned Walker Little a little bit. So they're getting ahead of it, and they're doing a better job. I wish they had done that with Josh Allen, but they didn't. So they're getting ahead of it. They're doing a better job at getting into the elevation phase of the build. And what I mean by the elevation phase is the foundation that they believe is done. We can debate that all day, but for the most part, what they're now doing is you're starting to see that they're going to keep some of these people and give them second contracts. So that's a really, really, really big deal for me, because I have always used the house building angle. And I'm like, every 3 or 4 years, they're redoing a slab. You never actually see the frame. You never see the roof. You never got a chance to really see what it looks like when they build it up. And then they started adding to it because every 3 or 4 years, they were starting over. that got alleviated to me when they got Trevor, right? And going and listening to the way that they speak and the way that they've drafted in the past, Anton Harrison was a left tackle. They made him a right tackle, who they think can probably eventually move back to left tackle, right? Trayvon Walker was just a defensive lineman, moved all over the place. They made him an edge rusher, outside linebacker, and they probably have some more versatility with him. So when you think of in the trenches, and he mentioned the trenches yesterday, it just seems like they go for talent and versatility instead of getting like a one-trick pony. And I don't think that's a terrible idea either, right? I get on them and I criticize them for a lot of stuff, but when they do things the right way and when they, what I believe is the right way anyway, of course, you're not going to get my criticism and you're not going to get those things from me, but I think it's only fair that when we criticize them for things that they don't do, that we give them an attaboy and give them a little bit of a high five when they actually do sound like they're doing things. The way that teams that have won is not about me. It's about teams that have won in the past and have been successful in doing. So we're going to talk about in segment 2 some targets based on the fact that it appears that the Jaguars are going to go real heavy to bring their free agents back, to keep their guys into the fold, maybe add a few additions that are very, very familiar with their new coaches, guys like Sheldon Rankins, like Jeffrey Okudah. Rankins played for Ryan Nielsen in New Orleans. Jeffrey Okudah, of course, was in Atlanta last year. So this is like some of these boxes that are perceived openings can be checked. The more of those boxes that they check off and they get filled in, the better they can just go for the best, absolute best player. Remember, they're going to be without one of those picks, whether it's the second rounder or a third rounder. I got a feeling they're going to end up moving back a little bit unless somebody just blows them away at 17. I don't think they'll move up. I can see them moving back a little bit and getting more ammunition like in the third round. They do have a third round compensatory pick that they are getting, I believe, for Jawan Taylor. So that'll be a pick in the 90s. But I think they need to focus on that hot spot, man, like 27 to 50. There's some real value right in there for some guys. So the positions that we'll focus on today are defensive line, offensive line, corner. And then I'm going to even take a look at wide receivers that I believe can be there. And then I'll point out some guys that if they're there at 17, the Jaguars are going to have a hard time just looking beyond them and looking past them. So we'll make sure that we get into all of that here on Locked On Jaguars. And then in the third and final segment, we're going to talk about guessing on what Trent's traits are and guys that actually do fit those traits. I'm going to name a couple of players that may not fit those traits too, that I think will be available for the team, that if they decide to go around what Trent normally does, and we don't have the official measurements yet, but if they do, it'll give you some idea of where I think they'll be. We'll mix a little bit of draft and free agency, because even though the combine is now, if they already know who they're trying to really work hard at bringing back, like I said, that decreases. Like if Cam Robinson's staying, that decreases the likelihood that they're going to take a tackle this year, right? Because unless he's a developmental person that they take in the 4th or 5th round, but the Jaguars need instant impact from their guys this year. If they don't get instant impact and they don't win, we don't know who's going to be here next year. So we're thinking that that's the way that they're going to go. So I'll name some players that I believe can help them out and mix that in with free agency a little bit, because now that we're at the combine, maybe the combine, even though draft comes after free agency, sometimes you got to know, take a look at what's going to be there, and you know what you can get and what you can't. And so you'll address that in free agency. So it's almost like, even though you functionally do free agency first and then third, because the draft comes right in the middle, you have the first wave of free agency, then the draft, and then the second wave of free agency. This will allow you to sort of cheat a little bit and take a peek and see what's there and know what you'll be able to get and who you'll be able to get to help contribute to the football team. So we'll look at all of that stuff here. It's coming up here on Locked On Jaguars. Hang tight for segment 2, where we'll name some players that I believe can help this football team. First, I want to let you guys know about FanDuel, man. You guys got to get on it. I know football season's over, but guess what? Guys getting buckets all over the place, and you can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers Get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet if your bet wins. Bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Let me say that again. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And if you're looking for therapy, I'm telling you, man, there's no better place than BetterHelp. I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of finding a way to figure out how you can get back going, right, when things aren't going well. And one of the things that you need to do is figure out that 24-hour gauge, that time, man. When do you rest? How do you prioritize the things that you need to prioritize? What's important to you? And how do you find the time in order to do those things? A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? All right. If you're thinking of starting therapy, which can help with that, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. All right, thanks for joining us here once again on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day, and we always thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. So we're talking about versatility, right? So it sounds as if the Jaguars get their way, they're going to have a starting left guard, starting left tackle that's coming back from last year. That leaves the question, what do they do with Brandon Sheriff, right? If I had my gut feeling, because he seems like he's always banged up, and I think that they've been throwing rocks at Father Time a little bit with him. He gets banged up, he comes back in. He's always laying down. Sometimes it almost as if like it breaks up the rhythm of the team. Like they might have something going good, and there he is. He's on the ground again. But look, the guy has been a warrior his entire career. He's going to get nicked up. He's going to get hurt. Apparently, he was really good at pass protection last year. It's just, to me, and the film might say something different, but my naked eye just tells me that there's not enough domination, right? And that could very well be because of the dude next to him, Luke Fortner, who's going to be on this team regardless if Jaguar fans want to cut him or not. But Luke Fortner is going to be a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars football team. It appears more and more likely that what they're going to do is bring in a veteran for competition. And I know I've talked about Lloyd Cushenberry and Richie James and guys like that. Well, if you go sign those players, they're going to come here to start, all right? They're going to come here to start. They're not coming in here. So it may be some other players down the line. Like if you look up some of the center prospects, and this is one of the things that I believe you have to do. I believe you just have to do it. You have to look up all of the players at various positions. You just have to do it. And you say, okay, well, who can help us? Who can help us now? I doubt if they believe, and this is just me being as honest as I can, I doubt very seriously if the Jaguars believe that the answer is another rookie at center. I really do. I just think there's too much riding on it. They already missed one time on a center prospect. I believe they missed on Luke Fortner. They're not going to say they missed on Luke Fortner, but I think, the bottom line is when you get right down to it, it just hasn't been very good. And Trent said yesterday, guys are born physical, right? Like they're born physical, and that those guys aren't really created. Well, if Fortner's not a strong player, you ain't gonna be able to change him right now. There are other guys around the league. I'm looking at Aaron Brewer from the Tennessee Titans. All of his numbers don't really seem like they're that high, but at this point, it really, really doesn't matter if you think Fortner's still a starter, but you want to bring somebody in. If they do lose out on Brandon Sheriff, Robert Hunt could be an answer there. Damian Lewis, Mike Owen, I think his name is Mike Owen Wahoo or something like that. He played last year with the Patriots. I always mispronounce his name, but he's a really, really good player. He's played guard. He played a lot of right tackle last year for the Patriots, but he's played a lot of guard in the past. So there's some people. There's some guys out there. There's certainly some players out there. I do think Sheldon Rankins is someone that they may look at. Sheldon Rankins is a guy that they may look at because he played and has some good days with Ryan Nielsen when they were together in New Orleans. And I also believe that they'll take a hard look at a guy like Jeffrey Okudah, who was playing corner in Atlanta last year and didn't do too bad for himself. A former top 5 pick, and teams never really give up on talent. I even mentioned that, hey, why not take a swing at a guy like Mekhi Becton? But that was before I thought that they were going to keep that's before I thought they were going to keep Cam Robinson. So the thing is though, Mike Onwenu from the New England Patriots, who can play both guard and tackle. And then you got guys like Kevin Dotson. You got to see whether he's a scheme fit. He didn't play well in Pittsburgh, but played better with the Rams. So there are people that they might go and get in free agency. My guess is they're going to sign a veteran center. They're not going to break the bank. If they make one signing, that is a big signing, is going to be Danielle Hunter. And I think it'll be Danielle Hunter because I think they'll have a plan where they're going to move Trayvon Walker around. But the fact that they got to re-sign Josh and Danielle Hunter wants the same kind of money, it's really hard to have 2 edge rushers both making $100 million plus, right? $25 million per year per player. That's an astronomical amount of money. I just think that they've been connected to Danielle Hunter so long, and that would mean that Trayvon would go inside. He wouldn't necessarily go inside. He wouldn't necessarily go inside where people think. He's not going to take. I don't think they're going to put him over where Roy Robinson Harris plays. But if they did do anything, they'd have him playing where Adam Goss has played, which is a defensive end in an odd front. But and maybe alignment won't even matter. I really believe though that they need to leave Trayvon right where he is, and that's at left end if they have a 4-man front. I just want him with his hand on the ground more than him standing up. So some targets. We're going to combine targets and traits here in our third segment. Trent's traits and these targets. And I told you I was going to name some positions, but I had to kind of set it up a little bit and tell you what my mindset is. Like, you're looking at the draft, but then you're looking at free agency, and then you're looking at free agency, and you're looking at the draft. With a team that needs to win, I believe, this year, and at least needs to have a better showing this year. Don't have these long streaks of losing. I think this team is going to be really careful not to have this start over mentality. I think they won 9 games 2 years in a row. One time they got into the playoffs, one time they didn't. I think what they're going to do is, how can we win 3 more games and become more sound and move ourselves forward while we're re-signing our young guys? So it's not a terrible plan. I know I've often been real critical of what they do, but when they do something right, I'm going to give them a little bit of an attaboy. And I like the mindset. They were better prepared yesterday than they were when they spoke individually after the season. Although Doug kind of leaned on that offensive line was injured thing. It's a fact, but it kind of leaned on that a little bit too much for my liking, but it is what it is. All right, third and final segment. I'm going to tell you who the players I think they'll go after that fit Trent's traits and how they're going to be able to obtain them in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. eBay Motors, man. Y'all sitting here talking about you need parts for your cars. I'm going to tell you, there's nobody that has more parts than eBay Motors. Passion, driving, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Motors guaranteed fit only. Available to U.S. customers. All right, third and final segment here. Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We always thank you for making us your first listen. Listen, you can make another listen. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. All right, let me name some prospects, man. Let me get right down to it. One of them, the guys that I think if they're sitting there, the Jaguars will have a hard time passing them, especially considering we don't know what they're going to do in free agency. All right, so I'm going to name a couple of them. One of them is Darius Robinson, big lineman, can play inside or outside. He's down to 285. Apparently, he was playing at 300, but he's a big man that can play inside or outside. And he's one of those Trayvon type guys, right, that has these traits that are big, long, and physical. And I just think the Jaguars believe the more active, strong, big body guys that they can get on that defensive line. And they're not going for necessarily the squatty types, right? They're going for just these long, angular, big dudes. Like all of them look like Calais Campbell had a bunch of kids. And that's what they are, right? Not as big as him, but close enough. Terrion Arnold, the corner, who I'll have his former trainer, a guy that works with him, call him Corn Dog, Michael Cornegay. He's going to join me at some point. We're going to talk to him about Terrion Arnold and some of these other prospects. Even asked him about this press man and press bail technique and what a corner has to do to survive or to excel in that. Nate Wiggins. Those are guys that I believe that if they're sitting there, the Jaguars will have a hard time. Nate Wiggins is an active, long corner. Some people doesn't like his tackling ability, but I like his speed and I like his length. And, you know, sometimes guys make business decisions. This is where the interview process. Sometimes guys make business decisions just to get to the bag, right? And then they get here. Once they get the bag, they start playing the way they're supposed to play all the way. But very, very talented. There's going to be a market for guys that have those skill sets. And if they get to 17 and the Jaguars are sitting there, it's going to be real hard for them to pass those guys up. Considering the way the Jaguars have already talked about this position, even if they go out and get like a Sheldon Rankins to play inside, he'll take whatever minutes and snaps that Foley Fatukasi had. Hopefully Devon Hamilton comes back. I can still see them adding a bigger player. Now, if they get into the second round, this guy might not be there. I'm going to call him Rook O because I cannot pronounce his last name. I think it's Orororo, okay? But he is another cat that's 6'4", 295 pounds, looks like an outside linebacker, plays with a mean streak, really disengages. You can tell he has a martial arts background, really moves people out of the way. He's another one of those freaky guys that we believe matches what Trent's traits are, right? And I can just imagine him on that line with Allen and with Walker and with maybe Sheldon Rankins also. And now you get another active big guy that can give you some of the things that Trayvon gives you inside, but you can still leave Trayvon outside. And then both of those guys can also play big end. Like if they had to pull Trayvon out, they could slide them over to the big end position. So I really like them. We mentioned some corners in the first round. I'm going to mention a couple of them, and I'm going to say you better hope Renardo Green is still there in the second round if the Ridley deal goes a certain way. If he's not, Jarian Jones will be there in the third. And this is not me picking a couple of Florida State players because I love Florida State. This is because I don't want Johnny Wilson anywhere near this football team. So we can just or Jaheim Bell. I don't think they're going to be good NFL players. If they are, great. I'm not the type of guy that just roots for guys that played at the team that I watched in college. But I will tell you, I watched them more than I watched anybody else, so it required me to do less tape watching because I knew exactly what they were capable of. Both of those guys. I think Renardo Green is going to be a superstar. He reminds me of at the very least, a guy like Steve Nelson, who's played 9 years in the league. But I do believe he also is a cat that can really, really, really get after it. Just watch his tape versus Malik Neighbors, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Jaron Jones is a little bit longer, thicker, more angular, but I think he's a slot. I think he gives you a chance to give you a big slot that in a pinch can play outside as well. Both of those guys were the glue of Florida State's defense. In terms of wide receivers, if you move back a little bit, and this might be a stretch because this guy might be gone because I hear he's flying up people's boards, and that's Brian Thomas from LSU. It's easy and it's so lazy to say that's DJ Chark because they're both 6'4". Chark was like 195, maybe 200. This kid is 210, 215 pounds. He is a deep threat. He is a pass catcher who runs after the catch. He can absolutely play. I fully expect Brian Thomas to turn into a top 10 wide receiver within 3 years of being in the National Football League. That's how big I am on him. I think he's going to be great. And he'll give the Jaguars something that they don't have, and that's that tall, big body target that can also just play football with versatility and not just be a big guy. So if they don't get him, I think in the third round, a guy like Javon Baker, who, while he's not as big, he's 6'1". Baker goes at about 210. He gives them run after the catch, and he also gives them somebody that attacks the football. And I just think the Jaguars need guys that attack the football. So Trevor, his passes don't have to be perfect. Just put him in the vicinity, and you have somebody that can get it. Baker also runs after the catch really, really well. Now, on the offensive line, in the first round, let's just say they move on from Brandon Sheriff. And they don't, and they're not able to address, and they keep Cleveland and they keep Cam, and they're not able to address the right guard spot adequately. Listen to me. I know he played, I talked about versatility, and this is why I did that. Troy Fatanu, if he's sitting there, if the Jaguars are at 17, or even if they move back a little bit, I think Troy Fatanu could play right guard. And he gives you that versatility that he can also, if a year or two now you decide you're going to move on from Cam and you move Anton to left tackle, he can swing out to right tackle. So I really like him. And another player I like for versatility is Graham Barton. I think when you talk about versatile, that's one thing. But when you talk about already proven that he can play tackle, projected to play guard, some people even project him to play center, and Trent's traits, he's 6'5", 6'4.5", 6'5". So he's not short and squatty like some of these other guys like Zach Frazier or even Jackson Powers Johnson, who's 6'3". I don't think you got to worry about arm length. I just think this is a dude that played outside that can play inside, and he gives you the versatility. With both of them, I think even with the guys that the Jaguars are scheduled look like they're going to try to keep, I really believe these dudes match. Now, I told you I was going to tell you some people that didn't match traits. I'll give you one that still does, Brandon Coleman from TCU. Played tackle. I think he can also play guard. The thing about him is he's strong as an ox, right? So he can play left guard. He may even be able to play right guard. But I always try to imagine him as a developmental player built with the rest of the guys that they're going to keep. And remember, they're going to bring Cooper Hodges back as well. So you're talking about competition. Competition is what causes the friction. The friction is what causes combustion. Combustion is what causes propulsion. And when you get propulsion, you can reach new heights. And I'm preaching to y'all right now, but that's what it is. So you want this competition to come in and shake the room. Finally, two guys that may not fit the traits, depending on how they measure. Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State. He's all of the Jaguars fans, one of their favorite interior offensive linemen to pick, but he can also play. I heard he's 6'3", and I saw him listed at 6'4", but he's also big and nasty, right? And then one of my favorites, Christian Mahogany. What a hell of a name. That's I would make my last name Mahogany if it wasn't Wiggins, because it just sounds so cool, right? Christian Mahogany, pure right guard, big, quick feet, gets to the second level really well, comes off of his man on the little stunts. He'll hit one guy, see another guy stunt, he can get over there. And then he really showed at the Senior Bowl that he can anchor down and not allow that penetration. So this is that domination I'm talking about. The only thing, he's 6'3", and I don't know if that's tall enough for Trent and Trent's traits, but we shall see. we shall see. So there's some names, there's some ideas. You know who the Jaguars want to keep. You can assume that they keep them all. Then they'll have a chance to draft, and then they'll have a chance to come back in the second phase of free agency and touch up and patch up what they might need. This will help you get some ideas of guys at those critical positions that'll be on the board when the Jaguars pick. We don't know in the second or third round what their picks are going to look like, but it will give you some ideas of what everything should look like come draft and free agency with your Jacksonville Jaguars. You guys make sure you tune in. We'll have some more from the combine as these measurements start to come out. Enjoy watching it, as I will, for the rest of the week. And you guys take care. Make sure you take care of each other. We'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.